Well, I'm all for Christmas, all the happy smiles and the wishes, and I want it all from the lights to the mistletoe.
And in here, we have this. So, of course, when Santa is coming, you have to prepare yourself and the room, and you have to put some cookies and a glass of milk for Santa to your table. And of course, the reindeers need some carrots. And you can make your wish list for Christmas and put that onto the table as well. You can't believe how much time this little tin has taken from my life. And you can't believe how proud I am about this little thing. I mean, you can close it and you can close it completely, even if this whole thingy is here, this whole arrangement, even if the tree is there and there's a screw behind the wish thing that holds the tin to this, and there was actually a second screw here, and that damn screw was so thick that I couldn't close the tin anymore once I had glued the glass. I was crying. Now it works again because I have removed one of the screws or the second screw here and glued this little bouquet flower there. That was just, it's just for covering the hole, and it holds with one screw as well. I've additionally glued the tin to this piece here, but it has driven me crazy. So that was just so hard. But let me tell you what I have done here. So this metal thingy comes from idea-ology as well. This is a little bit older, I guess. This says wish. It's a symbol for the wish list that you can make for Santa Claus. The little tree, of course, comes from idea-ology as well. I've just put that there because, Santa Claus, Christmas tree, that makes sense. This little star I've left like it comes from the idea-ology package. And do you know why? Not only because it looks beautiful, but it reminds me to those cinnamon star cookies. Do you know those? Here in Austria, they are really popular. I hope that you know them. It's like a brown dough, and there's something like liquid sugar that goes over the star cookie. And when that is dry, it's really delicious. And that looks exactly it looks like you could eat it. And I wanted to have this like a cookie star as well there. This glass of milk for Santa is made from a translucent cap from a water brush. I have searched for hours for something like this until I could find that. I've just cut that with an X-Acto knife, and then I have smeared some opaque texture paste into the cap to make it look like milk. And of course, Santa was already here because, this is nearly empty. And can you see this, like the rest of the milk here? I'm so hoping that you can see that. I mean, it's only a tiny detail, but it was just, this was a little bit nerve-wracking, but I wanted to have it as realistic as possible. You can also see that Santa was already here because, he has eaten some of the cookies. This is only half, and you can see that he has eaten a bit of this cookie. And these are made out of grit paste crypt, by the way. And after that was dry, I've painted them with some distress paint. And the black dots there, it's not because the cookies have been too long in the oven, but it's just some dark chocolate, some chocolate chips in the cookies. It's chocolate chips cookies. The plate, the plate is just a vintage button, and I've glued these 4 cookies here over the holes of the button so that you can't see them anymore. Some crumples from the cookies here on the table as well, and a little bit of smear there on the plate so that you can see that Santa was already here. And the carrots for the reindeers, I've made them out of, and I'm just putting my finger here so that you can imagine how small they are. They are really small. These are made out of texture paste, opaque. I have just taken a little bit of the paste, dried that a little bit with my heat gun, and then I've turned it around in my fingers to make something like a clayish condition. And then I've formed the carrots, and I've put some of this greenery into the paste. And that is actually some of that stuff there. Okay, so let's close this. And let's move on. So let's turn this around. And let's travel from Arizona to Austria. But let's make a stop here. So here you can see, one of the sides of this project. So let's start here on the bottom perhaps. This is the little letter for Santa Claus. You can read that here. It says Santa Claus. It's held together with a little, one of the tiny paper clips. And I even can't explain what I thought when I made this, because it's just so funny. Because I realized something after I had glued this letter here. Because when I folded this envelope and I've put the tiny paper clip here and I've attached this little thread here, I thought this letter needs something like a wax seal. But the problem was, so I put my finger here. You can see this red thing. It's really tiny. And you know how big a tiny paper clip is. So I thought it would be impossible to put such a small amount of wax to this area here, especially because there are several threads here. I've wrapped the thread around several times. So I thought I can't handle that. And what shall I press into the wax to make a real wax seal? I thought I will get the wax all over my envelope. So I've decided to use one of these half bubbles here. And after, I'm so sorry, that is just so funny. After I had glued it there, I thought it looks like Rudolph has lost his nose. And that is something that made me laugh so hard. I couldn't even think about the other things that I wanted to do here because I had to laugh so much. It looks just Rudolph's nose. But that's the beauty of working with ideology. You can do something, glue this little guy there, and you have to laugh so much that it holds on. This motion holds on for the rest of the day or even the rest of the week. And that's just so, so cool. So we have some more alcohol inked bubbles here and a little candy there. And here is this little shelf that holds 6 boxes, which have numbers, as you can see as well. So this is supposed to open on 8th of December, of course, on the 9th of December, and so on. So let's start perhaps with this one. I will not take them all out, but this one has a special thing so that I can show you this here. So everything about this box I can show on this example. That's what I was trying to say. So these boxes are just fold out of an ideology backdrop. And the cool thing is that the measurements of these wooden boxes are really nice because that. You can just fold these boxes and they will fit in there. So this is, oh my goodness, now I have to talk in inch, and that's not so easy for me. I think this is 1.5 inch. I am not totally sure, but if you take a ruler, you will immediately see which measurements you need, because the length of this it's just the same. Yeah, it's just a square, and that makes it really easy. And for this one here, I have decided that I want to have something inside already, even if you can't take this out. This is just a decoration for the box. You have still enough space to put some candy in here. Or, since this is an ideology advent calendar, you could also put some ideology pieces in here, like these little numbers or some paper clips or some of the candies, some bouquet flowers or whatever. I think that would be a really cute idea for someone who loves ideology. And I have glued this here because I wanted to have something like a bridge between the decoration here on the top of this project. As you can see, here are the bubbles and these bouquet flowers. And when I take this out, it splits into 2 parts. But when it's in here, it gets one again. Just like this. First, I thought I wanted to have a little one of these little toadstools in here. I have seen that on one of the projects that Stacy had made, and I was so in love with that, and I thought I want to have a toadstool in one of these boxes, but I couldn't find them anymore in the online shops that are available for me here in Austria, or let's say in Germany or Europe at all. I couldn't find them, and I wanted to purchase them at Simon Says Stamp, but then I realized that the shipping time would be too long to get them until I have to ship this to Tim. So I've decided to go this way, but I will definitely order some toadstools at Simon Says Stamp, and then I will make another project, or perhaps when I get this back from Tim, I will take one of the other boxes, and here in combination with the moss, it would look really nice as well, I guess. So I could take this, just take it out a little bit and put one of the toadstools in here. That would also make it harder to get the 10 out, because if the toadstool is here, you know, you would have a little challenge or something. You would need to take this out before you can take that out if something is glued in here. Does that make sense? I'm hoping. I have made these relatively high. As you can see, it's relatively hard to pull them out. I've done that because, you know, it's an advent calendar, yeah, and you don't want to like peek. When it's too easy, the chance is high that you peek what's inside of the box. And perhaps you want to know how I made these little numbers and like these handles, because the numbers at the same time have the function of a handle. So let me try to explain this. So these little numbers are from ideology as well. They are metal when you get them, like this, you know, like this color, just metal. I've alcohol inked them first, and then I have embossed them with golden embossing powder. And to make sure that the numbers are all black, because you can see this 8 is black and the numbers on the other boxes are black as well. But the numbers on these little metal thingies, they are like cut through the whole thing. And if you don't put something behind, you would see the color of the backdrop, of course. So this 8, in this case, would have been red. And I didn't want that. And I wanted to make sure that you can read these numbers really well. So I have backed this thing with a piece of black paper, as you can see here. And now they are here flexible, but they can't move at the same time. And when I say they can't move, I mean that this ring can't move anymore. This solution I am really thankful because Barbara at 49 Dragonflies brought me to the idea on how I could make this. I told her about my problem, and of course she didn't know about this project, yeah, because, you know, it's a secret project. And I mean, at that time when I made it, I couldn't talk about that to her, but I have explained my problem. I said, okay, I have a little box, I have this eyelet so that this is sturdy, and I want to have this here. But I don't want to have these like moving around, and I have to attach them with some kind of a ring or something. And then she said, why don't you just take a button? So she wanted to suggest, instead of this, take a button. But she didn't know that I needed the numbers. And when you imagine a button here, it would be relatively hard to take the your fingers and pull on the button, especially when the box is like so exactly cut like here. This thing you can lift up and then you can pull. But if you had a button here, that would be relatively difficult. And then I explained to her that a button would be a problem, just like I explained to you. And then she said, it depends on the kind of button that you use. And even if she didn't know the like problem in total, I was like, oh my goodness. It was like this, how do you say that in English? Like this bulb moment, like my bulb in my brain was lighting up. And I thought, it depends on the shape of the button, if this can work or not. Because first, I always had in my mind this like normal kind of button, this flat button with the holes. But then I thought, I have to take a button, and actually you can see the button is inside of the box there, but it has this little loop on the other side, and the loop comes out there and the ring goes through the loop. And then I've just fixed the button with some hot glue so that it can't move around anymore, so that now the angle of the loop is holding this ring exactly in the right position, so that it's like vertical when you look at it like this, so that the 8 and all of the other numbers can't move around like crazy. I don't know if that makes sense. Really hard to explain. Yeah, but Barbara, thank you so much for that sentence. I think I could hang that sentence to my wall. It depends on the shape of the button or the kind of the button, because that was such a eye-opener. It was just amazing. So thank you very much for that. So here we have some of the candies as well. I've just wrapped a little wool piece around them, and then these are glued. Because, as you can see, this shelf is a little wider than the boxes, than 2 boxes are. That's because I have taken one of the vignette boxes, and on the other side of this project, you will see that in a second, I've used one of the file drawers, and they have a little bit different measurements. These pieces here haven't been in there. I have made them out of cardboard and I've just glued them in there after painting them and altering them a little bit with some grit paste crypt as well, and some inks and that stuff. And this is just made to make these fit in here better, and that we don't have this little slot there. That looks a little bit like weird. Okay, so let's move this and let's travel to Tyrol. And let's visit Louise on the campsite. So this is where I live. We will talk about the campsite in a second. Let's just talk about this shelf, because then you can compare that a little bit better. So this is made out of one of these. I have them here on my wall. As you can see, these have, this is just like divided with this wood. It has this little handle there. I've removed the handle and turned it around so that I then had this little shelf. And as you can see, the measurements of this are a little bit differently than on the other thing. And here the boxes with the same measurements like the others, they fit in here a little bit better than into the other shelf if you don't think about it too intensively, because this was made on purpose. As I told you in the beginning, this project is like playing around with different things, with opposites, with things that are at first glance upside down. Look at the tree, for example, but it plays with opposites. And not only that, we see the opposite kind of Christmas celebration tradition. I think that was not good English, but I think you know what I mean. In America, or in this case for the project, in Arizona, they, or you, celebrate Christmas in a totally different way than we do it in Austria. And that is not the only opposite that I wanted to show. I also wanted to have the things that are in here in a different way. And this also shows that you can make a really regular shelf like this is, with really exact measurements. I mean, don't look at this slot. I'm not a box maker. I'm a junk journaler. And this took a lot of my nerves, this project. But do you know what I mean? This is really exact. And the other shelf is really wonky, really even more grungy, I would say. The boxes on the top here are straight. On the other shelf, I have made them a little bit wonky as well. And the shelf itself is wonky. As you can see here, this and this, it's not parallel, and it's not, how do you say that? It's not a horizontal line. Yeah, it's totally wonky, and the boxes are wonky as well. And I wanted to show this opposite, and I wanted to show the different styles that you can do with ideology. No matter if you are this like kind of measurementish crafter and use your ruler all of the time, or if you are like me and like eyeballing everything, you can do it with ideology. Yeah, you just have to change a few little things and you have your own style with like really easy methods. Let's perhaps first talk about this little sign here. So I think I have already told you that this is a paintbrush that I've just stolen from my own studio. And I have just stuck that into this little glass here. Into the glass, I've just put some Distress Paint Lumberjack Plat, and I've altered this a little bit with some grit paste and alcohol ink as well, so that it looks like really used and old. And these little signs are just some cardboard, as you can see. And then I have found these little guys here to make some like, how can I say that? I think the mailboxes in America are relatively different from town to town, I guess. I have never seen real American mailboxes, but it's a similar thing here in Austria. Some people have just a box with a lid where the postman can put the letters in, or there's a little slot where they can put the letters in. But for bigger things like newspapers, there's something sometimes on some houses like a newspaper roll below the actual mailbox. And that is what I tried to imitate here. So as you can see, these are like newspaper boxes in form of a roll, and there's actually a newspaper in there. Yeah, so this is just one of the ideology ephemera pieces. I've rolled them up so that you can take them out and write a little message on there, because I think an advent calendar doesn't always need candy in it. Yeah, of course you could take this out completely, then you would have this little hole there, and you could put a little really slim piece of candy in there. But I thought about something different. I also want to show that you don't necessarily need to put candy into an advent calendar. An advent calendar can also be filled with nice quotes, a story, a poem, something that you want to say to the person who opens those little doors each day in December. That doesn't have to be candy. And also for those people who perhaps have a problem with sugar, I mean, health-wise, it could be a good alternative to have an advent calendar as well, even if they are not allowed to eat chocolate or candy or something like that. These little guys here have the numbers 2 and 14 on this side. So that means on the 2nd of December, you can take this out. And on the 14th of December, you can take this out. And on the 6th and 12th of December, you can take this and this out. And these are actually made, perhaps you can guess that, because of this writing here. They are made from empty sewing yarn spools. So this is really hard, like cardboard, cardstock. I always don't know what is what. You know, a really hard material, but like paper, hard paper. And I have cut 2 of those in half to get the right size. That was coincidence. As you can see, they fit really well here size-wise. And I've then just glued them also a little bit like wonky here. After I had painted them with some distress paint, and when that paint was nearly dry, I've taken a paper towel and just massaged these rolls a little bit so that I got this distressed look. I think that looks really interesting. Why isn't my camera focusing? And these are actually really funny to me, because on the one hand, it's not only funny, it's like a little emotional as well, emotional and funny. I think I can say it like that, because these are original vintage yarn rolls. They come from my grandma and my mom, and they got them from a stash of a factory, I think that's a word. And they have been already relatively old when they got them. So this is just like a vintage piece that I wanted to include into this ideology make, because you know, ideology is also vintage inspired, and everything that you can find in the ideology collection is inspired by vintage things, and you can alter those things. For example, these little guys here, the letterpress things, they look like relatively new when you get them, and that's, you know, with some of the other ideology pieces as well. But you can alter them so that they look like used, vintage, and really old. And I like to include real vintage things like these, and try to, how did Tim say that in the Halloween live? He said when those things like real vintage and ideology are combined, and that goes seamlessly, that is really cool. And I agree to that, because it's just nice, because you can also use things that have an emotional context and include them there. the most vintage things have an emotional context, I think. Otherwise, we wouldn't collect them. And that is really cool. And the funny thing about these is they totally remind me to some, yeah, that's some kind of chocolate, crispy, kind of weird cookie thing that is available in Austria, in Germany, I think in Europe. Perhaps you know that where you live as well. And this is like a mixture of two different of those things. There are those, do you know Mikado sticks? They are way slimmer and longer, but they have this lighter end that is like a little, neutral, sweet, white cookie thingy in form of a stick. And the rest of the stick has chocolate. But they are way longer and way slimmer than this. But the color combination reminds me of those. And there are actually some of those chocolate cookie thingies that we eat at Christmas or in the Christmas time here in Austria. And they are covered totally with chocolate. And inside there's a little like spiral of crispy thingy. Really weird thing. And this looks like these things. It's really weird. But it's funny. So here on the bottom, we have this little dingly dangly thingy. So here, this is just a bulb pin. And I've fitted these little beads on it. I've poken a hole through the candy to be able to put that to the bulb pin as well. And here on the bottom, I've just added this little bead. This comes from a vintage bracelet, which I had in my stash. And I think this looks like really cute on the one hand. And it reminds me to a church bell somehow. But that comes because of something that was like a little accident. When I attached the bulb pin to this piece here, I had a little accident. The flowers haven't been here. I have taken a little loop thingy and I've poked that through this thing. And that is actually something that I have here as well. Perhaps you can see what that is here in the candy. Can you see this golden thing that goes into the candy like a screw, and it has this loop on the top? And I've used that to put that in here without realizing that it goes way too high into this thing because the material here isn't thick enough. And then the bulb pin, which I've put through the loop, was like moving around like crazy and it was not sturdy enough. So I've decided to take some hot glue these flowers here to make that sturdy, but that also made this really stiff. So this can't move anymore. And because of that, this looks like a church bell. Somehow. Abstract. You know, ideology is changing my mind sometimes. And I think, I don't know if it's a weird fantasy or something like that, but you know, perhaps you can understand it, perhaps not. Okay, so let's move on to the campsite. So this is the campsite where Luise is living the most time of the year. And when it's Christmas, or actually when it's winter, then it looks there like this. So we have really, really much snow, even more snow than I have added here. But if I had put as much snow as we get here to my project, then you couldn't see the caravan anymore, because sometimes it's just like, you know, like here to the windows, or we even had snow that was so high that I couldn't, let me show it here. Oh, I think my curtain here is actually exactly there where the snow was. So I'm trying to get backwards and I have my chair behind me. That's not so easy. So can you see that? So the snow was like here, until here. And there, my neighbors, you can see that their little house is not so high like mine, but you can see the caravan there, and you can, imagine how high the caravan is. And we had 1 year, I mean, I'm in Austria since 2016. That's not so long, yeah. I'm sure here was way more snow in the past than I have experienced it. But I have seen snow that was like until here. So you could climb from this little street that you can see there, where they had removed the snow. You could climb to the snow and your feet would be here. That was, I mean, yeah, when I bought my tiny house here. And now I want to sit down on and my chair is not here anymore. Oh my goodness. Don't crash to the floor. Louise, just take the chair. When I bought my tiny house here, and I wanted to visit it for the first time with the person who sold it to me, I had to climb to a little, actually a relatively big hill of snow as well. And when we walked through or over the snow, our feet have been here, approximately here. I have this little, this thing there you can like roll out when the sun is, like a rectangled umbrella. How is that called? Markise. It's Markise in German. I don't know how to say that. But our feet have been here, and I could look to the roof of this little house, and it wouldn't have been a problem to just make one step and go to the roof of the house. I mean, these are tiny houses, and as I said, mine is a little bit higher than that from the neighbors. It's approximately like this there. It's not so high, but what I'm trying to say is we have a really, really big amount of snow, and sometimes you even need a machine to get rid of the snow if you have been in your like normal house and not at the campsite. I mean, what am I talking here? Oh, holy moly. No one can understand what you are trying to say, Louise. So when I am in my like normal apartment, when I'm not here at the campsite, and I'm not here for, let's say, 4 weeks, and it's snowing all the time, then I need a really big machine to get the snow away. And I'm telling you that because what I have here, is like a snowy winter wonderland, and it shall show winter in Austria. But if I wanted to make this really realistic, I would have needed way more of the texture paste that I've used here to create the snow, because it would be way more. Yeah, but sometimes you have a limit with what you can do and what would be the reality. I mean, I can't I can't put so much snow in here, otherwise you couldn't see anything anymore. That was hard.
Well, I'm all for Christmas, all the happy smiles and the wishes.